And another time for Down in the Blocks with Chris Young here on the Crawford Podcasting Network here on March 23rd, 2021, a Tuesday, their day after a big Michigan NCAA win over LSU and a berth in the Sweet 16. This is the fourth straight Sweet 16 for this really solid program in the Big Ten right now and countrywide, the Michigan Wolverines. This also is 20 wins in NCAA tournament competition since 2013. That's the most of anybody in the country. North Carolina is 2 wins behind them. We can throw the metrics at you. It's all good right now. And I know we were a little bit leery of this Michigan Wolverine team, Chris Young, after that opening round win over Texas Southern. And, we started out worrying in this game too. Yeah. But take it through your thought process from when that game started, what you think they had to do, and obviously they did it.
Well, yeah, to start out the game, it was a little up and down, and that trend kind of continued the entire way through the game, which I wasn't real happy about. There was a lot of times, there was like 3 to 4 minute stretches where Michigan was killing.
Back and forth.
They were right back to where they were. They hadn't missed a step without Livers. They were out there. They were playing defense. They were playing offense. And all of a sudden, they kind of take the foot off the gas. And then they let these 2 guys just take off, go to the basket, hit those stupid little half 15-foot, 10-foot floater shot
floaters
things they were doing. And, it was just like, oh, man, is this going to be it? Is this going to be when, they finally pull away, when LSU finally makes a big enough run that we can't come back from? And then all of a sudden, they flipped the switch again, and off they went. And they just figured out how to play D, and their offense was clicking. And, the play of our bench was unbelievable. The play of, Johnny Brown was phenomenal. Eli Brooks was absolutely the leader that he had to be, coming up with the 2 big rebounds at the end of the game. So,
yes,
there's not a whole lot more that needs to be said about this kid. He's been the leader the whole time, and now he's finally stepping kind of out of Livers' shadow and showing that when it comes down to it, when we need a big shot or a big play, he's stepping up and making it.
No, I agree totally with you, Chris, on all those points. And I'm telling you what, those 2 guards, Cameron Thomas and Javonte Smart, they both played 40 minutes. They were both 40-minute warriors. They're both 10 of 23 from the field. They matched that. They were both perfect from the free throw line. Mm-hmm. And they had contrasting styles that, Cameron was that three ball guy. Javonte Smart was a slasher. He reminds me of Doc Rivers, the way a long time ago. The way he slashed and the floaters that we talked about. I don't think there's a better pair of guards that Michigan's faced all year. Do you, than those 2?
No, I really don't. They were able to do pretty much anything they wanted to do at any point, and it didn't matter who we had guarding. All we could do was just try and slow him down. Even when we tried to put Franz Wagner on him, who was, taller and one of the best defenders, I think, in the country, they were still able to get their shots off against him. They were still able to get to their spots and do exactly what they needed to do. The saving grace that Michigan had is that, aside from the one kid, Watford, who had 11, they had no help. Nobody else scored. No one else was doing anything. If they had one other scorer or a big that could score a little bit, this would be a Final Four contending team. But they're missing that one piece.
Yeah. Now they took care of the. LSU was stuck at 0 turnovers for most of this game. Michigan could not turn these guys over. It was amazing. And Michigan was doable at 12 turnovers, not horrible, but that was a big disparity in this game early on.
Oh, for sure. And the first turnover that LSU had, they were on a fast break, and Smart tried to do some between the legs backwards behind the back pass, something or other, and the ball just went out of bounds, and everybody was just looking around like, dude, what are you doing? And that was their first turnover of a game, and it wasn't even a forced turnover. It was just him trying to be, a little too fancy. So, I don't have a problem with Michigan's 12 turnovers because they didn't really cost them a whole heck of a lot. There wasn't the Izzo phrase, the turnovers for touchdowns. So it happened once, but it wasn't anything that really hurt them too much.
Yeah, I thought. There's so many takeaways in this, Chris, and I thought that this. I've talked about this with a couple other people today. I thought this was the biggest win of the year for Michigan for a couple of reasons. Number one, it takes you to Sweet 16 and all the the limelight that brings, but the fact that you got to go back to that Ohio State game in Columbus, that Michigan really wowed you. Okay. Yeah. And even wowed you in good. They were good and obviously very good in that second half of that Michigan State game in Chrysler. But that was not as good. That was against a team not as good as this team. But I think that they just needed this from a confidence standpoint without Isaiah Livers putting a game like this where you got solid 26 minutes from Brandon Johns, where there was not a lot of negative to it. It was mostly positive. He didn't score a lot, but he got 5 boards. I thought that was terrific. That was a steady thing. Franz Wagner, I'm cussing him out earlier in the game, going fan here. But I said to myself, when are you going to be gritty in a big time game? And I'm telling you what, that last 5 minutes, he was gritty.
Yes.
That's the best 5 minutes I've seen him play all season long.
Oh, for sure. Yeah. And I was doing the same thing. I kept saying, okay, Brandon Johns is playing well. Johnny Brown's playing well. Eli Brooks is playing well. Hunter Dickens is playing well. Where the hell is Franz Wagner? Like, he's just out there just kind of cruising. Then he just decides, you know what, I'm just going to go to the basket now. I'm just going to do this. I'm just going to do that. I'm going to get stops. I'm going to get to the offensive glass. I'm going to get to the rim. I'm going to make some threes. I'm just going to take over this game the last couple minutes and just win this for us. And that's what he did. It was like, man, if he could put that together for more than a 3 or 4 or 5 minute stretch, if he could put that together for a half, I mean, that he puts himself in the lottery right there.
Yeah, well, that's exactly right. But that's a big if. I mean, he's got to do that, and he's going to have to do that against Florida State. We'll talk about them in a little bit, but I thought that was huge. Smitty didn't have his best game. That's obvious. I thought the size differential between him and the guards on the other team, kind of disheveled him a little bit. But let's go to your position where you played at Michigan at center, the 5, Hunter Dickinson. He played pretty good. 12 points, 11 boards. He got, when I call it chopping wood, when they're chopping wood against, and they're trying to discombobulate him and confuse him. Yeah. I was a little worried about him early on, but he made the adjustments and he was big time in the second half.
Yeah. He made some big plays. You could tell there was a little frustration coming down the stretch. He was trying to post up and he had obvious post position, and he basically took his forearm and put it right in the guy's throat and kind of knocked him from the block to the free throw line. It's like you can see that was just frustration because he's had this guy hanging all over him the entire game. But his work on the defensive glass and just his presence inside and how much the teams have to respect him. When he's posting up hard, there's always at least 2 guys on the help side with their foot in the paint. They're always worried about where he's at and what he's going to do. And then when he was getting the ball inside, he made some tremendous skip passes, reversing the ball, finding open guys. I mean, he wasn't, his normal 20 or 25 point where we think he's really dominating the game, but he controlled the game without scoring a whole heck of a lot of points.
Yeah, there was a couple points, in this game, Michigan got down, I think, by 9 in the first half. Maybe it was like 30-21. But there was a 14-1 run that Michigan had in this game of runs. Good Lord. When you see the line items of all the runs of both teams, that's why this game was entertaining. And that's why some of the commentators in the post-game studios were talking about this was the most entertaining game so far in the tournament. Not that it went right down to the wire by possession, but just the intensity of play for the whole 40 minutes. But there was a strong in that 14-1 run in the second half. There was like, I don't know if it was about 4 or 5 minute stretch there was a big time intensity on defense that I hadn't seen in a few weeks. I'm going to say that right now.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. We just kind of sat down and was like, okay, that's enough. We got to start getting stops. We got to start. If we're going to make a run, if we're going to get to the Sweet 16, it's got to happen right now. And every one of them just dialed in. There was no laughing. There was no joking. There was just, let's go to work. And they figured it out. They got back to where they were playing, 3-4 weeks ago, right when they got back from the COVID pause. It was this type of defense that they played, the entire second half against Wisconsin, and they figured it out last night. And now they got to figure it out again against this Florida State team because, ooh, baby, are they tough.
Well, they're deep. They had 9 guys last night that played double-digit minutes. So you're not going to be deeper than Florida State. And they have a 7-foot center from Serbia who gets in foul trouble. If he doesn't, he's going to pose problems. I know that's Sunday at 5:00. Jim Nantz making the call on CBS. We got some time to savor this, but still, you're always trying to. When you're Michigan, I mean, you're trying to look to the next step, But I love the 28-15 run to end the game. which Michigan hasn't been finished. They didn't finish strong in a few games this, in the back half of this. But what does this do from a confidence standpoint, Chris? You being a former player, I mean, does it take a game like this where a few players say, "Yeah, I can do this. I got this." Is that and then it switches on, or is it kind of a roller coaster ride?
No, right now the switch is on. I mean, they've shown that they can beat a very good high level LSU team without one of their best players.
Yeah,
with other guys stepping up and with them playing. And now they know and they've got the confidence. I mean, you saw Brandon Johns come off the dribble last night, the first, second, third play of the game, come off the dribble, went to the rim. And instead of him being 6'9", 6'10", and getting up by the rim and finger rolling it, he went right to the rim and attacked and dunked it.
Yeah.
And that just set the whole precedent for the entire game. Johnny Brown comes in, doesn't even think about it, gets the ball at 15 feet along the baseline, buries the jumper. Doesn't even think about it. It's not like, oh, man, I've been missing all these shots and doing all this. They're on now. They're dialed in. And, whether or not Livers can come back, in 2 weeks, if and when we make to the Final Four, that's one thing. But they play like this. I don't know that they need him until then.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, it's not. I mean, this region, Chris, is going pretty chalk. Other than you got an outlier in UCLA who's playing really good, and they're probably from the hottest conference. I mean, you look at what USC did last night to Kansas. I don't know if you saw that. They look scary good.
Right.
Oregon, we saw them. I thought they were going to score 120 points on Iowa earlier in that game. They won 95-80.
Mm-hmm.
So the Pac-12 is looking pretty good right now. So that's a tough region. I'll tell you what, if they get through that region, I think, and if Gonzaga is as good as Gonzaga, everybody says Gonzaga, oh, they're so great. It's hard for me to determine that. I mean, when I saw the first part of that Oklahoma game yesterday. And Oklahoma punched him. Yeah, the Zags bounced back and they won easily. But why does everybody think Gonzaga? Tell me why Gonzaga, everybody thinks they're so great. I'm sure they are, but why is it from your?
There's a little bit of, they're the number one team in the country and they're undefeated. And with playing against them, they're going to make a run. So, you punch them in the mouth, they're going to come back. They're going to, they're going to step back up. They're going to show something. And they're very athletic. They've got a lot of guys that are 6'6", 6'7" plus that can all get up and down the court, that can all handle the ball, that can all shoot. And then they've got a couple of guys that are just elite level athletes that, the one kid was doing up and unders and step throughs and stuff like that. He looked like he was in an NBA workout. I mean, he's doing all kinds of stuff. And it's like, you just don't see that. And if you're not used to playing against that level of athleticism, like obviously most teams in the Big 12 don't have 3, 4, 5 guys per team that are that athletic and can shoot like that, it's going to be kind of a shock to you. And then you see them, they're undefeated and, chasing down history and all that. It's a tough thing to kind of wrap your mind around when you come out and you give them your best shot and they're still standing.
Yeah. So, I know that was
is Gonzaga, Goliath where no one can take them down? No, absolutely not. But, it's going to take a special team to really give them a good run. Because they're vulnerable, but it's not somebody that, it's not going to be an unexpected team. There's not going to be an upset brewing for Gonzaga, I don't believe.
Yeah, no, it's a special team on a special night where everything goes together, pulls together in that moment. And that happens. That's why they call it March Madness. Those 3 balls go in. I mean, you can get a big lead on somebody, right? USC was, they just absolutely obliterated Kansas. This is not a vintage Kansas team in my mind. But the Blue Bloods are going awry here. What's your take on? I mean, I haven't talked to you since I think it was Friday, and a lot more wicked stuff is going on in terms of upsets in everybody's brackets. But do you think this transfer portal with the mid majors why is it we're having names that are not normally there this far into the Sweet 16?
Well, I think a lot of it, the Dukes and the Carolinas and Kentuckys and stuff like that, I think they had a lot of guys come in this season that weren't the Zion Williamson level. That came in that were 5-star guys that weren't as good as 5-stars have been in the past. And those teams, typically the Blue Bloods now, that's what they recruit. They want the high level. They want the Zion Williamsons. They want the top at the top of the top. and they got some of them, but they weren't as good as what they've been in the past. So that's why we're not seeing any of those teams, doing anything now, because they just don't have the same caliber of players. And then you get a team like Michigan who gets, two guys out of the transfer portal that are absolute perfect fits. Yeah. And now I just saw a kid that, Jawan was really big on from North Carolina that's entering the transfer portal. Yeah. Big kid from North Carolina. And it's like, well, who knows? Who knows where he's going to end up? He could end up, he could end up at Duke, or he could end up anywhere. And that's the interesting thing about the transfer portal, where, kind of all bets are off. Whatever your allegiance was, or whatever coach that, recruited you out of high school, but you didn't want to go and play for, now you can go and play there. And it just totally changes the dynamic from year to year, what each team's going to look like.
Well, it's like you got to recruit your own players. I mean,
yeah,
Minnesota's got this new coach. They fired Richard Pitino, and then Ben Johnson, a former player, right? He might have played in Minnesota around the time you were just finishing up at Michigan. Yep. And so this number one thing he's got to do is recruit Marcus Carr to stay.
Yes.
I mean that's his number one agenda item.
Yep.
I mean, that's, and that's the unfortunate part. I think it's going to get out of control, where you really, Michigan State's team next year, I swear to God, that roster will not be recognizable. No. I don't think.
No,
from what it is that we just left.
It definitely won't be. And then look at Penn State's roster.
Yeah.
They got a new coach in this year, and they had 6 guys already hit the transfer portal. I mean, that's just how do you rebuild from that? I mean, you just go and find guys out of the transfer portal, and maybe get 1 or 2 recruits. I mean, it's getting that type of situation. That's just unbelievable. But I mean, Jawan's going to have to do the same thing. He's going to have to, kind of recruit the guys that are already here and be like, okay, we want you to stay, or it's time for you to move on. And that's what coaches are going to have to do now. It's not like you get a guy on campus and they're there for 4 years.
Well, Colin Castleton, Castleton is a prime example of that. Yeah. Colin Castleton got, let's just be real. I mean, he got pushed off the ship, in my mind, don't you think?
Oh,
yeah. So he goes down to, which ended up great for him, although they lost Oral Roberts. But, I mean, he had a pretty good first-round game, 19-14. Yep. And he's at Florida. I mean, my God, that's not a bad school to hang out at, University of Florida in Gainesville. So he's living large, and he's playing. I mean, he wasn't playing much at Michigan. So sometimes it's a good thing. I just think we're going to need a scorecard where all the fan bases are going to have to learn their players every year. Okay, who do we got? Who's on the canvas this year?
yeah, that's for sure. And then with this new league that's starting up in the fall, of the semi-professional league or whatever that's trying to compete with the G League and all that, I mean, guys are going to be drawn to that too. Guys that we thought were 100% recruits and coming in, I mean, they now have the option to go and do that.
Make $150K right out of the chute.
Right out of the chute. And then you don't have to worry about going to class or doing anything like that. You're a basketball player. So, I mean, it's going to be interesting, but you're right. Getting the scorecard with, okay, number 2 is different this year, and number 3 is different this year. Number 4, it's like, okay, we got to, really pay attention to who these guys are, because it's going to be different. And there's going to be some guys at Michigan that decide, it's time to move on or whatever, because they're not playing or whatever the situation is. So
now we're on this topic. I got an interesting, just hypothetical for you. Okay. So, this is the COVID year. Everybody can come back. Okay. So it's like you got a free recruiting year. Okay.
Yep.
So 2 guys, Shawnee Brown and Mike Smith, technically could come back next year. Okay. I don't think any of them are going to be NBA draft picks. Do you?
Nope.
Okay.
No.
So where do you think Juwan Howard would be on of having those 2 kids back if they were interested?
If they're interested, you got to bring them back. You got to push real hard to bring those 2 guys back.
Yeah.
And then, I don't think you can bring Austin Davis back for a 7th year or 8th year or however long he's been there. But, even if he doesn't come back as a player, you bring Austin Davis back as a grad assistant or something like that, just to keep him around, to keep him working out Hunter Dickinson and working out the new guys coming in and all that. Yeah. So that's a way to kind of keep him in the fold also. But, I mean, if you can keep Mike Smith and Shawnee Brown around for another year, why would you not?
Yeah. No, I agree. Hey, back to the game before we close this thing out. A couple more questions I have for you. Eli Brooks, I saw a tweet from Spike Albrecht, early in, I was somewhere in the late first half, just like, oh my God, Eli's going off. I mean, there were moments, and I agree with it, obviously. I mean, there were moments in that game. I said to myself, he is really, really good.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How important is that guy? And Phil Martelli comes out and says he's our MVP.
Oh yeah, yeah, for sure. I mean, he kind of got, he always got a little bit overshadowed because he'd come out just about every game and knock down a three and get a bucket or something like that, and then he'd kind of fade back into the distance as Hunter stepped up and Franz stepped up and Livers stepped up and all that, and he kind of got lost in the shuffle. And he'd make some big shots, but it wouldn't be anything incredibly consistent. He wouldn't go for 15 a night or even 20 a night. And now he's showing that he has to be the one that steps up, and he's obviously capable of it. You don't get to play this many games at Michigan and be a starter and all that without knowing how to score, without knowing how to play. And man, he showed off every trick he had in his bag last night. I mean, going to the basket, rebounding, making plays, getting stops, making threes. I mean, he was exactly what you want your senior leader to be.
Yeah, and I thought that the 8 minutes and a half that Terrence Williams delivered was solid and needed.
Yes.
I mean, he had 4 points. He had that slash to the hoop for that,
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to, on a delay thing. He was up at the point. He saw an opening.
Yeah,
and
he drove right down to the basket. Yep.
That was awesome.
That was
And I think he had a few rebounds maybe. He just did some. Or actually, he got 3 assists. I take that back. He got 3 assists.
Yeah, 3 assists and 1 rebound. And he was just in the mix.
He was in the mix. Exactly. He didn't hurt them.
He wasn't getting the rebounds, but he was throwing his big, solid body around and knocking guys out of the way so Hunter could come in and get him, or other guys could come in and get him. So every time he plays, you see something that just gets a little bit better and a little bit better. And from a fan, that's awesome. But I can't even imagine how excited the coaches are about a guy like that wants to be out there, and that every time he gets out there, he proves his worth. And you got to give him a little bit more time and a little bit more time, because he brings so much value when he's out there.
What I like about this, we talked about what we just talked about T. Will. We talked about Shawnee Brown. Obviously, his contribution was exceptional, and Brandon Johns was, it's like surprisingly wonderful. There were 2 guys that didn't play to their par. One being Mike Smith.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, I think Juwan just took him out because I think he felt he was hurting his team.
Yep.
And Austin Davis, 9 minutes into, wasn't bad, but really didn't contribute that much.
Yeah.
He didn't really. He couldn't get separated. He couldn't get a shot. Or he took like 2 shots. But my point is, this is what I like about it. Is those are 2 guys that you would always depend on. Okay, so they had a couple of bad games. Here come a couple other guys to step in to fill the void. That's what makes a winning team.
Yeah, absolutely. And you're right. At the end of the game, Juwan did take Mike Smith out. Just put him on the bench. He did.
A
little out of sorts. You touched on it earlier. He was playing against bigger guards that were a little bit stronger than what he's used to and a little bit more physical with him than what he's used to. And you saw at the very first possession of the game, he broke his guy down on the wing, got to the free throw line, the elbow area, and went up to take a shot where normally in the Big Ten, that's an easy shot for him, and that's 9 times out of 10 a make, and he got a block because the guy was able to recover fast enough. And that just kind of set the tone for him for the game, and he was never able to get into any type of offensive rhythm. And then Austin, you said it absolutely right. That's been my guy for 5 years now. He came in, and it seemed like every time he was on the floor, it's when LSU went on their run. And so he was never able to get, I don't even think he had a post touch.
Right.
Where every time he was trying to post up, he's like, oh man, there's a turnover, and he's trucking back up the court to get back on defense, or they're scoring easy, and so he was never involved. And it's no fault of his own. It's just kind of the ebb and flow of the game. But those are 2 guys where normally you expect, Austin's going to come in, he's going to get 4 to 6 to 8 points, and 4 to 5 to 6 rebounds, and Mike Smith's going to be the leader of our team, and that's just not how it went yesterday, and that's okay. We had enough other guys step up that's fine.
Okay, last question. What's the thing you want to see most? I'm not saying improvement, but what are the keys to the game? I know we're still a few days away, and we're still. I've seen Florida State a couple times. Like I said, they're deep and they're very athletic. And well, I mean, last year they were really good. I think they're almost as good this year. And Leonard Hamilton's a good coach. But what are the what's Michigan going to have to do to win this game? And in terms of the top 2 or 3 priorities in your estimation?
Well, I think the biggest thing is Franz has got to come out from the first minute of the game and play the way he's capable of.
Bravo.
He's got a tough matchup. He's got to come out and play great defense, not pick up any stupid fouls, and he's got to be aggressive on offense. He's got to be going at the basket. He can't just be settling for threes. And then, the second thing is that everybody else on the team literally just have to come out there and play the way they're capable. Not do anything too extravagant, not try and force the issue or, oh, man, we got to do this because we got to get to the Elite Eight or whatever. Just go out there and play ball. Let the game come to you. Don't try and force it. You get down. Don't try and come back and with one shot. And that's the key right there. And then you got to take care of the ball also because, this Florida State team, they're long, they're athletic. They want to get up and down. They want to create turnovers because they want to get out in the open court and get dunks and stuff like that. So we can't give them anything easy.
One last final question. Why has the Big Ten been struggling, Chris? I mean, and I'm seeing these slashing teams. I'll give you, for example, North Texas with their little guards going blowing by Purdue, which is a good team, which will be a really good team next year. Yep. What's the reason for this ridiculous hitting the brick wall for most of these teams?
Man, it's crazy. I think a lot of it has to do with most of the Big Ten teams this year are kind of the same. They've all got a traditional five that wants to play back to the basket. They've all got wings that are athletic that can shoot, and they've all got some guards that are very talented, but not necessarily, the really small little water bug guys that just dart all over the place.
They're not downhill guys. They're not a lot of down.
That's what these guys are. They've got a 6'7" man. They've got a couple of guys on the wing that are, 190 pounds soaking wet that are just long and athletic. They've got these little water bug guards, and we're just looking around like, man, where the hell did these guys come from? Like, this is not what we're used to. You get a Big Ten team, and they match up very well together. But you get them against, North Texas, who's got a bunch of guys that are, undersized for the position and lightning fast. Those are tough matchups.
Yeah. They looked a little disheveled. They could have won that game. Three of those Big Ten teams lost overtime games, so it could have gone the other way.
Yep.
But not a good look. But you know what? Everybody in the Big Ten hates Michigan, so to hell with these guys. I mean, Michigan will carry the banner, right?
yeah, that's for sure. Well, and we've been saying all year that Michigan's the best team in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
I mean, especially since January, we've been saying that. Yeah. So, let's go out and show that we're truly the best team in the Big Ten. That getting to the Sweet 16 wasn't just a fluke.
Yeah, no truth to the rumor that Brad Underwood to declare his team national champion. So
I heard right after opening tip he made some kind of comment about now we're partial national champions or something like that. So
Okay, see why you delivered it again. You look like you're up north with the big trees behind you or something, man.
No, this is my backyard, man. That's all. Just hanging out today.
All right. Well, I'm gonna try to join you here. I got a couple things done. So you have a great day. We'll talk to you soon. See why.
All right. Thanks, Tom.